That's where like brain fog hits, right? That's where depression hits. That's where mood disorders hit. All of
Mhm.
those kinds of things start to settle in. And then we start getting really bitter and angry and maybe even hangry because now we develop some sort of an eating disorder, not knowing what to do because we've put ourselves in some sort of a loop and we don't know how to get out of it. We feel trapped. And so the only way to mitigate those withdrawal feelings or those guilt feelings is to continue with the spiral, to continue with the cycle. And then that ends up leading to inadvertently things like cancer or other problems. So we don't want that cascade. And so building
Mhm.
this awareness is why I want to bring up gut brain axis and how we get back to the basics. But
I
let's
actually want, is it okay if I hop in on that for a minute? Because that's
please.
actually where my leaky gut came from. I was always a kid that always had flu, I had bronchitis, I had strep throat, and I was always on an antibiotic. And then even when I started taking probiotics, it still takes about 6 months for your gut to build up that good bacteria, like you were saying. So I was destroying it. And if it's destroyed, then how can you have good moods? It's not able to produce, like we were saying, the serotonin. So I started to do little switches. Like, and again, well, I didn't say that yet, but I'm not a medical professional. I'm somebody who got lost in the system and learned how to save my own life. So that's pretty powerful to be able to save your own life and now help others. But what I started to do was just simple little switches, like
Well, welcome back to Cosmic Connections, everyone. I am so grateful you're here on this equinox day. To me, this day represents this moment of renewal and balance and a quiet beginning, before the summer comes and like gets everything all loud. So today, we are exploring a theme that feels deeply aligned with this season, like how the gut-brain axis is quietly speaking with us and how we nourish that and that wisdom that the land holds. And I met today's guest, Maria, at a gathering for entrepreneurs. We found ourselves talking about soil and different natural products, and then we went into like talking about the intelligence of the body, and I immediately felt like just she was so grounded and she just had like this brilliant presence about her. She was
thank
holding this
you.
cute doggy. Oh my goodness, so sweet. Um, she teaches about the digestive tract in a way that I'm hoping feels both, you know, ancestral to you, but also scientific. We like to bridge the science with spirituality, and I think that Maria will do a really good job with that. Um, but she also gives us both practical and deeply intuitive guides as well. So today we're going to weave together the land, the gut, the nervous system, and the remembering that we're not separate from any of that. So Maria, welcome. I'm happy
Thank
you're
you so
here.
much. Thank you. Yes, immediately when I saw you, I think you spoke something about the land, and I just came right to you, and I was like, we need to talk. So
Yeah.
should I introduce myself a
Yeah,
little?
please do. I would love to hear a little bit more about your path and like what drew you to understanding more about ancestral wisdom and nourishment and natural products, natural healing.
Mm. So I am the Awakening Catalyst, and I specialize in the gut-mind connection, help people with coaching, supporting them on their wellness journey. I'm also a published author, and I'm the founder of Karma Sea Gems, my sea moss business. I have retreat businesses, and when I speak about all the different things that do, it kind of amazes me that that's even me, because what your guests probably are not familiar with is that I spent most of my life battling debilitating depression and anxiety, not being able to get out of bed for weeks at a time, every single day. It would be that same struggle. Put one foot down on the floor, Maria. You got this. Just put that foot on the floor. Hours and hours would pass by, and on a good day, after hours, make it out of that bed, and I'd make it to the shower. But by then, I had used up all my energy and I had nothing left in me. I was depleted. I felt depleted by life. I felt defeated in life, but I had like this determination to live. See, I was living in New York City and I was working 18-hour shifts. I was depleted constantly. Most of us don't realize that when we're in so much stress, our body is literally feeling like it's in survival mode, running away from a bear. So it depletes you of the body. I was on 17 pills a day, seven for my mental health, and I still couldn't get out of that bed. Everybody was trying to fix this, and nobody realized it was this brain that needed the support, the gut. Once I started to support my gut, detox my body, build up my gut flora, I started going vegetarian. And I started to notice things like fibromyalgia gone, ulcerative colitis gone. My depression started to lift up. I was like, wait, I didn't know this stuff could heal. When I went vegan, everything went away. I went from 17 pills to zero. And that's when I really learned and discovered that these plants, they heal our bodies. They really do. So now I took that darkness and I turned it into my passion, my power, my purpose. And that is why I support others on their journey. Because what I did, it's not unique to me. This is our blueprint. This is what happens when we follow our blueprint in life. We go from barely surviving to thriving.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You and I have very similar stories in that, um, and I think that that's where a lot of us kind of begin our journey of like how it is that we can self heal. I don't know about you, but the Western medical system just failed me big time. And,
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of traumatic experiences in life. And like Bessel van der Kolk says, the body keeps the score. And it's so true. Like, you hold all of the issues in the tissues, they say, and it's so true.
Hmm.
So, like, it was like, well, if that's not going to help and instead it's going to make matters worse. In fact, like, just a little background. In 2007, I was dealing with a lot of panic attacks. I mean, throughout like my like adolescence and young adulthood, there was a lot of traumatic stuff, and so I was always dealing with panic attacks. And the only way to get me out of the panic attack was to, like, I guess, hyperventilate and work through it. And there was no way of me being able to control it at that time. So I had a recommendation to go see a psychiatrist who told me that it was a generalized anxiety disorder and that I should go on meds. So I went on the meds, and like short while later, I found out I was pregnant, and so I went off the meds, and that sent me into a crazy psychosis, and
Hmm.
I ended up like losing my child while I was pregnant with her, and she'd be 18 now. But that really sent me into a massive amount of depression
Yeah.
and grief. And I lost a lot of faith in the medical system for sure. And then working as like a medical assistant, I saw doctors prescribing medications like they were glorified drug dealers. And I felt like I had to put a stop to it. I always felt like I needed to do some sort of caregiving, but I wasn't sure how that was going to work. But I definitely knew that whatever traumatic experiences I had, that they had to have been there so that I could help transmute them in other people, or at least help them not have to experience what I did, because I would never wish that on anybody. So I had to find the ways of trying to heal myself naturally, and it took a lot of work, but of course, it sent me down the road of gut healing because I personally experienced Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, and then Crohn's
Oh.
disease. And it was in 2019, my body started bleeding, and no doctors could tell me what was going on. And that was after a big spiritual like awakening and me really going deep into
Mm.
my shadows over a course of a few years. And then I just asked Source, please purify me. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was burning from the inside out, literally. And all of this stuff was coming up, like this faucet that had not been open for maybe ancestral lifetimes. And then it opened, and all of the rust and the mud and the muck came flying out, flooding out. And I was experiencing all of that in my body, in my digestive tract. And no doctors could explain what was going on. So that was the end of 2019, all of 2020, all of 2021, and then finally they said ulcerative colitis, and then they said you have Crohn's disease in 2022, then a series of surgeries. So I had lots of things going on in my body, and I had to return my body to a place where I could finally be in rhythm again. But it took a lot of serious work to
Hmm.
get me to that place, and it's because of that journey that I'm able to stand here now and tell you that it's never too late, that it doesn't matter what it is that you go through, you're not defined by that thing. You're not this body, you're not
Hmm.
this mind that's constantly shifting and changing. but the earth can heal you, and you just have to take your power back.
Yes.
And so that's what where we're going to talk about, and we're going to begin with talking about what those foundational aspects of the gut brain axis really are. So I'm gonna shift it back to you, Maria, and I'm gonna ask you, because I'd love to like ground us in what the basics are of the gut brain axis. Like when you talk about it, like what do you want people to understand first?
When we eat life and when we put the right nutrition, there's two things that cause us to get sick: deficiencies and too much toxins. So when we go back to the basics, when we detox our body, build up the gut flora, the microbiome, and put life in our body, we thrive. And Hippocrates is my favorite to quote. He knew way back then, the father of medicine, all disease begins in the gut, and all, including our mental health. The medical system had failed me as well. I was somebody who never questioned it. If the doctor prescribed it, I took it, and they were my glorified drug dealers. And then when I couldn't get a hold of, I was having daily panic attacks as well. And when I could not get a hold of my Xanax anymore, I started to like, oh my God, where am I going to get it? And that's where I discovered Bach flower remedy. It wasn't my cure-all, but the earth started to heal me. I did not have a panic attack. I had anxiety, but not a panic attack. So that was one step in a better direction. And that's what started to get me back to plants, back to the earth. When we realize that we are the earth, we are not separate from it. We are not separate from nature. We
Mhm.
breathe in the air from the trees and we breathe out and they breathe in our air. It's like we are in sync. We are one. When we get back into that rhythm, that flow, we heal.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bach flower essences or flower remedies. It's a beautiful way of being able to connect with fresh flower magic. And I say magic because the way that it was introduced to me, I took an illuminated flower medicine course by David Crow. He's an amazing guy, herbalist for years now, like over 2 decades. And I love the way that he talked about this. When he first introduced the course, he was saying that the flower itself is the reproductive organ of the plant, right? And when
Mm.
it is opening up its essence, it's wafting its essence. That essential oil of the plant is the soul of the plant. And it is
Wow.
literally calling out its soul to connect with the
Wow.
pollinators, right? But it's also calling out to the pollinators so that it can connect with other life beings like itself. And so in
Mhm.
that way, it can continue its seed to spread because if a plant can't pollinate itself, it has to be cross-pollinated. So as it's doing this, it's opening up its flower, right? Its
Mm.
reproductive organ to allow that wafting smell to come out. And then the bee, let's say, will come and it'll make love and tantalize itself on the pollen, get its little buckets filled with pollen, take in its nectar, right? And then go off and be able to cross-pollinate to another plant. That essence, that flower that we take fresh, that we pray to, that we put into a distilled water bowl, that we hold out into the sun's rays for a
Mm.
matter of like 4 to 12 hours, and we're sitting and we're praying with that. We're putting our intention into that powerful essence. Now we're taking that mother and we're able to transfer it into other pieces of medicine that are now holding that mother's essence in it. And we just take little drops of that being.
Oh.
And that helps on the energetic level because we have pheromones, but we also have scent glands that are on the top, on the roof of our mouth. So
Mhm.
it's going to connect with the olfactory bulbs, which is directly connecting with our limbic system, our emotional center of our brain. And so when we're taking in that essence, we're connecting with our emotional centers and calming it down. We're like saying that it's safe, we're saying it's okay. And so that's why it helps with
Mm.
anxiety. So, how do you explain then, like the connection here between like digestion and our mood and like our intuitive faculties, right? How do you connect those?
Well, as I was saying before, when we are stressed out, our body thinks it's the same thing as running away from a bear. It goes back into survival mode. So it starts to deplete our body of the nutrition and the very essence of what we need. And what most people don't realize is that up to 90% of our serotonin, which is the hormone that makes us feel happiness, is produced in the gut. When the gut is depleted, when the microbiome is not strong, when it's got toxins in it, it cannot produce the very hormone to make you feel happiness. The same thing goes with our neurotransmitter blockers, which keeps everything from feeling like it's a fire. So that you need the neurotransmitter blockers. So this way your body realizes that not everything is panic mode. If our gut health is not healthy, then This thinks that everything's fire, panic mode. It starts to overreact about a lot of things. And I remember I always used to say, why are they able to handle this better? Why are they not spiraling out of control when something happens? And I thought there was something very wrong with me, and there
Mm,
wasn't. My microbiome was just so weak. But simple things like I mentioned before, detox and building up the gut flora, putting the plant life, and then the spiritual side. You want to meditate, connect with your source, ground. Oh my goodness, I ground myself every single morning before I even get out of bed. My morning routine is simply before my feet even touch the ground, I meditate, affirmations, I step outside, I jump on my trampoline, and I drain my lymphatic system. And that's where if our lymphatic system is not draining properly, it stores and holds on to disease, trauma, all of that gets held in there. After that, I ground myself. And then comes the nutrients, and I put the right proper foods in there, whole food, plant-based. That's the start of every single morning.
mm. And okay, let me ask you this. Because you were saying that at a time in your life, when your digestion was not so great and you were feeling depression, right? So there's your
Mhm.
mood. How well, like, because they talk about brain fog, right? Like, how well
Mhm.
would you say your intuition was then
Oh,
at that time?
I was drowned. So I was on 17 pills a day. I was lost in the medical system. I was somebody who I did not question it. If the doctor prescribed it, it was like, well, you need it. Why would they give it to you? They're the professionals. I never questioned it. And I ended up on 7 pills for my mental health. And the way I could best describe it is, I'm going to try to say this without crying. I felt like I was trapped inside my own body. I wanted to scream so bad, but the pills didn't let me scream. I was numb. And people would look at me like I was a zombie. So how can you connect to your source? How can you connect to your intuition when you feel like you are a zombie just trapped inside this body? Like I wanted to scream from the top of my lungs, help me, but the pills wouldn't let me scream. There was just blank. I was just blank. So I was not connected with my intuition at all at that time. It was just so clouded, so clouded.
I just want to recognize what you went through, Maria, because so many people who are hearing this podcast or listening or watching this podcast, they can relate to what you're going through or what you had gone through. And it's not an easy fate. It's not an easy fate to put your faith into someone or people who are supposed to be a team, who are supposed to be helping you get better. And maybe that was their intention, but maybe they didn't really work as a team. I think that,
Mhm.
there is a time and a place for the immediate need for regulating if we can't control it right now and we need an immediate need. There might be a time and a place for that. And what I mean by that is with integrative medicine, okay, and I want to emphasize right now, integrative medicine will help with cognitive behavioral therapy. It helps you with nutrition, it helps you with exercise, and it helps you with psychological therapy, right? And so you're talking it out. All of these little things right there say that maybe there was a little emphasis on supplemental help with medicine. If and when that is ever necessary, I want to emphasize if and when, I would say that it has to be temporary, it has to be monitored, and I would never increase the dose. Instead, if there has to be an increase of dose, I would say that that means that the medicine isn't necessarily working. Because the idea is that we don't want to have to take it for the rest of our lives. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors are there to block reuptake of serotonin from what's called a synapse. There's a cleft, there's a neuron, it's connecting with another neuron by communicating through neurotransmitters, one of those being serotonin, y'all, and it'll come through the membrane of one neuron. Now, and this is like microscopic happening, okay? And this is happening on many, many neurons that are sending a signal. And these little neurotransmitters, which is a chemical, will fit onto a protein that's on the other membrane of another neuron, and that will fit like a lock and key. But if we're not producing enough serotonin, then the body is going to naturally dissolve it, like touches and then leaves, touches and then leaves that protein. And when it does, it will then dissolve or it will get back up into that presynaptic terminal of the upstream neuron, let's say, okay? And so in that way, if we don't have enough in there, we're not sustaining that groundedness or that level-headedness or that happiness molecule, so they call serotonin. And so
Right.
then doctors will prescribe a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor thinking that it's going to help regulate our mood, stabilize our mood. And then unfortunately, like you, Maria, like then they'll end up prescribing other medications for other symptoms. And a lot of the times they're because of adverse effects. And then those adverse effects get toppled on with other adverse effects that we're
Mhm.
taking more medications for. Insomnia is one of those. But all of this and what we're going to talk about next is that it's all about gut health. So,
Mhm.
like, what signs would you say are someone's gut is asking for support?
Every sign. So the reason why I say that is because our body doesn't speak English. The only way it knows how to communicate with us is through the symptoms. A headache means there's something, is it magnesium deficiency? Did you not get enough food? Everything is a sign of your gut needing some support. We dismiss it. We take a pill. We get skin rashes. That's your
Hmm.
gut. Your liver's needing some support. It's breaking down a skin rash because you've got too much toxins in your body. Everything literally is a sign that your gut is trying to speak to you on. It doesn't speak English. It speaks in symptoms. Whether you have dandruff in your hair, you're not getting enough nutrients. Everything is your gut trying to get your attention. And once we realize that, instead of just shutting up, because when we just take a pill, put an ointment on our body, it's in a sense telling our body, shut up. I don't want to pay attention to you. But it's going to try to get your attention because it's trying to heal itself. But
Yep.
if you're not listening, it's going to try to get your attention in another way. So you put a band-aid on it. Okay, we don't want to take care of the headache. Let's put a band-aid on that. And then it's going to try to get your attention in another way and another way. And that's where we start getting into more pills and higher dosages because your body's literally trying to heal. Your gut is literally communicating with you, trying to get your attention. So this way, if once you give it the right nutrients, it starts to heal. This is a self-healing machine. It is so magnificent, so magical when we start to listen to it. But everything is our gut communicating with us.
Yep. And and I'll just like speaking of serotonin, in the gut, 90% of our serotonin is produced in the gut.
Mhm.
So with only
Yeah.
90 or 10% in the pineal gland because of the conversion of melatonin to serotonin, but 90% of it is in our gut. And but that doesn't mean go out and eat a bunch. That means make sure that you watch what you eat because there's certain things that will become addictive in the euphoric sense, and
Hmm.
that's not where we want the serotonin to be built. Like tell me if you've ever experienced like craving something before a cycle, let's say, and you're like craving,
Yeah.
let's say, chocolate or,
Yeah.
something sweet, right?
Yeah.
Because chocolate is known to release serotonin and periods are known to deplete serotonin.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting thing, y'all. But like Maria was saying, and I think that this is really important to emphasize, is that your body speaks in symptoms, and
Hmm.
that we just need to be able to listen and and also show up because this is excuse me, this is our temple. This is our
Hmm.
temple, and we only get one body in this lifetime experience. And so our job then is to listen with the ear behind the ear and also help, it along to be able to prevent these things. Yes, it's easier said than done, but it's not impossible. I like that Audrey Hepburn like quoted, nothing is impossible. It says it in the word. I'm possible. I
Yeah.
love that. you know. So
It's simply learning the language of the body is what it is. And once you start like learn any new language, when you start to pay attention, you'll see it's the same thing over and over again. For instance, now when I get headaches, I'll realize, okay, I'm low magnesium right now. So I'll put some Celtic salt or pink Himalayan underneath my tongue. I'll put some in my water bottle with some lemon and the headache will go away. Or an Epsom salt bath. It's just learning the language of the body instead of suppressing it.
I love that. Thank you for that little tidbit. Oh my gosh. You see, guys, why I wanted her on here? So in your experience then, I want to know like how does the gut as your like let's call it your spiritual compass, right? Because we trust our gut the most. We have gut feelings all the time. Like
Mhm.
how does it act as your compass physically and let's say spiritually or emotionally, let's say?
Oh, I do everything now by my gut because now that it's no longer congested and medicated and blocked, my gut intuition, I hear it speak to me like it's a voice. I really do. It guides me throughout my day. Everything I do, it's even just getting out of bed. I will, before I said, as I mentioned, I do my meditation, my affirmations, and then I ask my body, what do you need from me today? And soul, what do you need from me today? Sometimes they're aligned, sometimes they're not. But if you do simple little things like ask your body, your intuition literally speaks to you. It will tell you, I just need a little bit more rest. Today I need stillness. Today I need movement. It's a different answer every single day. But
Yep.
when you start to check in and literally speak to your body, speak to your gut, your intuition will literally strengthen and start to communicate with you. And that's where the magic in life happens. Like it truly does, because you will start seeing synchronicities happen in life, just like meeting you. All these different things start to align. And it becomes life truly becomes magical when you start to align with that inner knowing, that intuition, that gut feeling.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. Exactly. And to bring that back, like between the gut brain axis. So, what I was talking about with what is like this enteric nervous system? What is the gut brain axis, right? So, just to give you a little background, the gut brain axis is going to consist of um, your vagus nerve, and your vagus nerve has both sympathetic and parasympathetic activations. What that means is the sympathetic nervous system is going to be the fight flight response. So it's bringing in the stimulation of adrenaline and norepinephrine in the system, both hormones and neurotransmitters. And then the parasympathetic nervous system gets activated, which is your rest and digest. So that 10th cranial nerve vagus is connected to different organs that are essential for being able to run away from predator, right? So your lungs and your heart. And then it's also connected with your rest and digest, so your digestive tract and your adrenals. So, in that way, then, what we want to be able to do is connect with the vagus nerve. We want to connect with vagal stimulation. And we can do that in several different ways that we'll go over. But the premise here then is that we have to go from fight, flight, sympathetic response to rest, digest, parasympathetic response. The way that we can do that is tuning inward. Because if we're constantly being stimulated by an outside source, if we're not paying attention to what the body's needs are, then we're not even able to tune in to being able to be in a place of stillness, to be in a place of rest and digest. So just taking a breath in and sighing it out verbally, vocally, that can stimulate your vagus nerve if you do
Yeah.
it in a nice long sigh. So keeping that in mind, I think, really is key to being able to connect in that way, like um, more on a level that is physically stimulating, but also emotionally stimulating because not only is it with the vagus nerve connected with the organs as far as gut brain axis, that is very much about your emotional center. It's about, um, what is going on with our hormones because that's where our moods get produced, right?
Mhm.
Well, hormones are going to affect inflammation, and that's because of like cortisol. So if what's called the HPA axis is constantly activated, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, that's our stress response highway. And
Mhm.
then we have constantly a lot of adrenaline that's running through the system. We have then a lot of cortisol that's going to back that up to try and regulate our system. But the precursor to cortisol, friends, is cholesterol. And that's going to clog our arteries, but it's also going to cause more inflammation. Another thing that does that is leaky gut, which is
Mhm.
really, really important to talk about because that's going to cause a lot more inflammation. And when inflammation hits the bloodstream, it can go from being food sensitive issues to then becoming psychological issues. So that's why the gut brain axis is so very important that we need to be able to regulate that system by regulating what we eat, the environments that we have, all physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. And we do that by checking in. Um,
Mhm.
I always talk about the pies bodies, the physical, intellectual, emotional, and spiritual bodies. And like, I'll journal about those. Like, I have a special journal. I don't have it right next to me, but it's a special journal. I've talked about it. If you go into the Vital Flow Methods YouTube under, I think it's yoga and Ayurvedic teachings or something like that, there's one on um, the pies journaling and how that helps you connect with self. And essentially it's the same thing that she was talking about. And yeah, it's one of the best, most simplest practices to be able to hold yourself accountable because you're writing it down,
Mhm.
and you can go back to it and then you start to notice patterns. You start to notice what's happening in my body around different times of the season, around different times of the month. So all of those things really play a role in noticing and then being able to hold yourself accountable for coming back to a rhythm that works and is holding you at your highest, right?
Right. The journaling is a really great idea, and I always suggest that with my clients because a lot of times you think within hours, oh, I ate that a few hours ago, I didn't notice it, but it will stay in your system for a few days. And I'm one of the people that when I was trying to get healthy and I would put healthy foods in. I'm like, I can't eat that. The roughage is bothering my stomach. The spinach is bad for me. It was leaky gut. And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't realize that. They think that it's just that they can't eat certain foods. So if the healthy food is aggravating you, but the fast food is not, you probably have a leaky gut going on in there, and you're needing to address that and start to heal in that. And it's just being like gentler with the foods that you're putting in your body. And once I did that, the food started to get now they started to like build up the nutrition in my body. The mood started to change. You spoke in the cortisol level, and most people don't realize that. They think that the inflammation just means your body is swollen, but inflammation is mood swings. Inflammation is anxiety. Inflammation is high blood pressure. Inflammation is so many different things in your body. And if you don't know how to regulate that stress every day, because let's face it, life is always going to have stress. You're not escaping that, but it's on how you can regulate it. What tools do you have in place? What practices you have in place so you're not spiraling out of control when stressful situations happen. Because each time you spiral out of control, the body goes, it doesn't understand, hey, I'm just in traffic late for a meeting. It goes, uh-oh, we're running away from a bear again. All right, guys, we're in survival mode. It doesn't understand.
Mhm.
Your body regulate when your hormones start to raise, when the cortisol level goes up, your body only registers that as running away from a bear, survival. It doesn't know anything else. And that causes the inflammation in our body. So it's important to have the right tools in place to have something to help regulate your nervous system.
I don't know if anyone who's on here understands like leaky gut. This is a really important cascade precursor. Like because the leaky gut begins with what's considered dysbiosis. What is dysbiosis? So Maria was talking about the microbiome. That is one of the most crucial things, and I know that's big buzzwords in the digestive health world, because it has such an importance. So a little bit of statistics that microbiota is a 3-to-1 ratio to our own cells of our body. It's not just in our gut, it's even on our skin. So we have all different friends that are living with us all the time. We're never alone because they're in our guts or on our skin, but they're there in some sort of a symbiotic relationship, very seldomly in a parasitic relationship, because of the good gut bugs. So the good microbiome balancing with the bad microbiome is what keeps us being able to conduct our daily lives. What dysbiosis represents is when that gets shifted, it gets tilted. So what ends up happening is, let's say, for instance, this is just one correlation to what can cause dysbiosis. You are someone who got sick, and your doctor prescribed you then some antibiotics. So that antibiotics then you had to take for 7 days. Let's say you're a child. Let's say that doctor, you get sick all the time, and the doctor gives you a lot of antibiotics. Over time, then your gut is going to, especially if it's a broad spectrum antibiotic, it's going to kill off all the good and bad gut bacteria. But then let's say that you don't eat right. So then you start to eat things that are like processed foods or um, like packaged foods. Let's say you end up having lots of foods that have refined sugars. And what does that mean? Let's say like coffee, cakes, cupcakes or cookies, let's say chips, crackers, tortillas, rice. Um, so those kinds of foods, especially like instant rice, they don't necessarily, and white flour have nutritional resource in them, but they're highly sourced in carbohydrates. And the carbohydrates, if staying in the bloodstream, can end up feeding your gut bugs that are not the good gut bugs.
Mhm.
But what does feed good gut bugs are things like prebiotics. And that's why we talk about prebiotics, because they're there to help balance um, those nutrients that are going to help source the good gut bugs. And what that'll end up doing, so what are prebiotics? Things like mushrooms are going to be a good prebiotic for your system. I would say leafy green vegetables are going to be one of the highest resources, and high enzyme rich fruits. And always eat your fruits before you eat any of the other foods that you're going to eat, especially if they're like cooked vegetables or any source of like grains, because those are going to sit on your gut longer than the fruit will. So the fruit should be eaten first. And that's a really good enzyme source to help break down the other food that's coming after it. So that's important. Why? Because the microvilli are there, but there's also good gut bugs that are going to be along that intestinal wall. And those are what help thicken that wall layer so that then Let's say yeast, for instance, right? You have candida. Candida is a normal, typical uh, biota that is in the gut, in the small intestine, that hangs out. It's also under like different crevices of our body and the vaginal system. It's everywhere, so it's normal if it's in its cystic form.
Hmm.
But if it goes into the rhizoid form and it starts to project itself like little roots, microscopically, it can start to build little holes in that small intestinal wall. That's where leaky gut comes in, so that you can
Yes.
then see what's happening here. Well, like this sweeping along method of the microvilli is taking up stuff, right? Well, if it doesn't have that thick layer of this bacteria here, well, then it's not really going to be able to help prevent the stuff that's not supposed to go through here
Mhm.
from going through. And that's where toxins and undigested food particles and other things can get into the bloodstream. Now, that's where the inflammation starts to hit the body. And that's where food sensitivities come in. And that food sensitivity could lead to um, irritable bowel syndrome, for instance. And the
Hmm.
irritable bowel syndrome can lead to inflammatory bowel issues, and that's where like brain fog hits, right? That's where depression hits, that's where mood disorders hit. All of those kinds of things start to settle in. And then we start getting really bitter and angry and maybe even hangry because now we develop some sort of an eating disorder, not knowing what to do because we've put ourselves in some sort of a loop and we don't know how to get out of it. We feel trapped. And so the only way to mitigate those withdrawal feelings or those guilt feelings is to continue with the spiral, to continue with the cycle. And then that ends up leading to inadvertently things like cancer or other problems. So we don't want that cascade. And so building
Hmm.
this awareness is why I want to bring up gut brain axis and how we get back to the basics. But
I
let's
actually want, is it okay if I hop in on that for a minute? Because that's
please.
actually where my leaky gut came from. I was always a kid that always had flu, I had bronchitis, I had strep throat, and I was always on an antibiotic. And then even when I started taking probiotics, it still takes about 6 months for your gut to build up that good bacteria, like you were saying. So I was destroying it. And if it's destroyed, then how can you have good moods? It's not able to produce, like we were saying, the serotonin. So I started to do little switches. Like, and again, well, I didn't say that yet, but I'm not a medical professional. I'm somebody who got lost in the system and learned how to save my own life. So that's pretty powerful to be able to save your own life and now help others. But what I started to do was just simple little switches, like, well, maybe I don't need antibiotic this time. I was starting to make little switches, say, because every little thing was, oh, you need an antibiotic. Oh, you need an antibiotic. I was on antibiotics like 3, 4 times a year at least. I was getting strep throat every single season. I would have strep throat, bronchitis, and yeast overgrowth into my body. It was just like a vicious cycle. So just by stepping back and saying, okay, do I really need the antibiotic this time? And I was just making these simple little switches. And that's how my leaky gut started to heal. That's how my body started to heal. That's how my microbiome started to develop what it needed so my moods got better. So my anxiety lessened. So I was able to deal with stress better. Simple little switches.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for sharing that. I mean, case in point, we're done here.
That's why I had to add that in there because it was just so that's where I was going to go right before you went into that explanation. So I wanted to just because what you said is so accurate. That's exactly
Mhm.
how I got lost in the system.
Yeah. And I want to also like give you another example of how that can happen. Just stress. Stress
Mhm.
can cause dysbiosis in the microbiome. Why? Because a lot of the times we stress eat. And the foods that we eat when we're stressed are usually ones that don't cost us so much energy when we want to eat or when we're hungry. And so we're not in the mood to prepare food. We're not in the mood to even think about eating healthy when we're in a stressed state or when we're on the go, 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 go constantly. And my heart is like right here with all of you listening to this or watching this. The struggle is real. The marketing and advertising of the industry of fast food marketing is it's very hard not to just want to go to that place that's right there because it's so much more convenient. That's where the willpower comes in, and that's where the practices come in, and that's where the, returning to the basics and how the ancestors would eat comes back in.
That's
So,
one of my specialties is teaching people how to prepare. Meal prepping is my biggest thing. And I start people off with something so simple and basic, like chia pudding. Something so simple so you get into the habit of reaching into the fridge and having it. And then that feels so good that it motivates you to have, well, how would it feel if I had two things in the fridge ready? So I help people, and
right.
that's literally one of my specialties that I do.
So like, where do you see these ideals or parallels rather between like soil and gut health?
We are under the illusion that we are separate from the earth, that we are separate from nature. When we eat foods that are from the soil, from the sun, it nurtures our body in such a way that we start to thrive, that we start to heal. There is a plant for every disease, for everything that happens in our body. Food is meant to be our communion, our connection to source, our connection to the soil, our connection to the earth. So when we are pretending that we're not noticing that we're eating poison, that we're eating something that's been trying to live, we have to shut off that part of us. And in that numbing ourselves, we're disconnecting from the very thing that teaches us how to heal ourselves.
Hmm.
Like I said, we are energy. So we are either taking in the energy of the earth, of the sun, of nature, or we are taking in the energy of stress, of panic, of fear, of
Hmm.
crying. Energy doesn't disappear.
No.
So that's why we're meant to go back to the communion with earth. Yeah.
When I think about that remembering, it's not that we are learning anything necessarily. It's that we're allowing that which has already been known to be revealed unto us. And we do that through coming back to the basics, coming back to the land, coming back to the soil, coming back to this place where we're tending to it, where we're stewarding it, where we're giving more than we are taking. And I think that that's one of the most important things is for us to be able to go to a place in our heart space where we're realizing that Mother Earth is our is where we were birthed, right? And so we come from that source. And we're going to go back to that source in this body mind, right? That's going to end up being a part of her again, like compost. And in the meantime, though, it's like anything in nature, because that's what we are in this body form, it all produces somehow. It's not like it's trying to consume. It's not like it's trying to just take without giving. It's always giving more than it's taking. And I think that that's something that we just, we've lost our ways. And so coming back to those ancestral ways of, living off of the land is kind of quintessential. We've lost our sense of how we're growing on the land too. So instead of building like food forests that are sustaining themselves over time, because everything is helping one another. Um, companion planting is amazing because they're communicating in these ways where they're sharing nutrients or they're communicating diseases nearby, and so different mechanisms in place for them to be able to sustain their life or bolt so that then they can start another cycle. It's just beautiful to watch that happen when you're paying attention out there and when you're nourishing, when you're giving back to that soil.
Yeah.
All of that micronutrient that's in that soil now becomes a part of the food that we're missing. Even if we're going to the market and we're getting like leafy green vegetables, unfortunately, we're not even getting the good stuff because it's like depleted of the nutrients. It's just crazy to think that like you would have to eat 8 oranges nowadays to get the same amount of nutrition that one orange you would get in the early 1900s. Yeah, because the soil is that depleted of organic matter, and the organic matter is living, teeming life that's in there, what we call detritivores, that helps break down the nutrition of all of like what should be there on the top, which is all the decaying, decrepit matter that they feed off of. And that also helps the soil not get too dried out. So you're not like having like super hard dirt either. So like all of these things are put in place when you are living a sustainable life and you're living off of the land and you're tending to the soil. And by doing that, then it's tending to your gut because now you're getting better nutrients. Your body is able to absorb proper nutrition because there's a high amount of that nutrition in the food itself. So I
I
think
definitely want to hop in here. So, are you familiar with the red wriggly worms? Are you familiar with them at all?
like earthworms.
Yes. So
Yeah.
what I have is I have a compost bin, and every single day I have my kitchen scraps and I put them in my compost bin. It does not smell. I feed the worms. So I take my kitchen scraps, put them in the dirt. My worms, they turn into compost. I take the tea that they make, and then I put that in my plants. My plants produce more nutrients for my body. It's a beautiful circle. There's no waste. That is how we are meant to live.
Yeah.
No waste. Mother Earth doesn't have waste. She goes in cycle. We want to talk about the circle of life. That is the circle of life. We take our scraps, give it to Mother Earth. She turns it into more nutrients for us, more plants. They feed our body with higher nutrients. And that's the beautiful circle of life. And
Hmm.
that's where we thrive in our bodies when we're taking care of the earth. Because once again, we are the earth. That is self-love, self-care. When you are taking care of that soil,
They did have people in the ancestral ways just talking like you and I are right now. We're passing. This is a transmission. This is,
Hmm.
a way of being able to pass information through like a way showing beacon. And we're either going to stand under that beacon and allow it to shower over us, or we're going to lose it because we're not allowing to ourselves to listen with the ear behind the ear. So that is the idea, is that those who are worthy are going to be listening to the transmission when it's passed on orally. And I think that that's the other part when we're talking about the ancestral ways of nourishment. It's like, give us this day our daily bread. Well, in that way, I don't think that the daily bread was ever actual food. I think that it was
Hmm.
nourishment in the body, in the mind, and in the heart. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because if we're in Christ consciousness, if we realize that essence between I and my Father are one, then we know that nothing is outside of that. And there is no way for us to treat anything differently. Even the
Mhm.
little ant, because the ant has a specific reason to be here.
When you're doing these things, when you're just doing simple acts of kindness, just remembering to be kind to one another, kind to the planet, kind to the animals, and it's like you don't realize the power that that has in the world, and it does.
Speaking of how we're kind to the planet and to animals, Maria and I both practice making our natural products. And, because there are a lot of like beauty products, for instance, that are out there in on the shelves that are usually animal tested. I mean, there's a lot of them that are not animal tested, but there's a lot of products out there that have a lot of ingredients that are still like alcohol based, drying out your skin. Like they produce probably more harm than good. Sure, they're more convenient because you don't have to make them, but it's actually really fun to make them.
It is.
So, so I wanted to say like, like we'll ask you how making, your own natural products and how has that like brought you back to earth, and also brought you back to yourself by being able to do those things.
There, I can't even explain it. There's this, it almost like calms your nervous system when you're making these things, knowing what's in them. It's like even I started with just as simply as making my own laundry detergent and
Mhm.
seeing how simple it is and how it smells so beautifully fragrant with essential oils versus synthetic stuff. And now it's like I can't stop doing laundry because it's like it feels so good being like smelling the frankincense and lavender that's real versus synthetic stuff like Febreze and all these other stuff, the essential oils that I put on my body instead of perfumes. People will literally stop me now and be like, "Oh my God, you smell so good," as I walk
Mhm.
past them. And there's this sense of, I don't even know how to say it, but that simplified life, it just, I don't know, it does something to your nervous system. It calms you, knowing what's in these products that you're putting in, getting back to the basics. It let like your nervous system actually starts to calm with it. I don't know if you've noticed the same thing, but I really have. There's
Yeah.
something like when I just scoop up my own homemade laundry detergent, which I just did before we went on this podcast, there's something just so when I do it. That's the only way my body literally feels like it takes a deep breath.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I I think when I work with the plants, especially if like I've grown them, or because I've like watched them grow up. I've watched them since seed and all the way through their life. I've watched different cycles of them and different seasons of them, and watched their ups and their downs, and how they've flourished, and then different times, and even seeing like different personalities within the plants. So I built different relationships with them, and then so that is my connection with the plants and earth. It's like I have such a deep connection with Earth Mother, and she's my biggest teacher. Like you know, I, I absolutely am fascinated with seeing elemental qualities within plants. And so that's kind of a little nerding out thing that I'll do is like when I'm out there in nature, I'm looking at different like elemental qualities of, like, for instance, right now in the season, we have what's called Brassica nigra, or mustard plant all over the hillsides. Mustard plant
Oh.
is like they're like these lime green shoots that have like these little yellow flowers on them, and they make the hillsides look lime green. Um,
Mhm.
they're also called eye of newt. I don't know if you've heard of eye of newt,
I
but
haven't.
so it's an herb that helps with our lung capacity and our and working with like upper respiratory infections. And I find that so beautiful because you can see what's called the doctrine of signatures in different herbs. And this plant, you're seeing the quality of the element of air in the way that it grows, because its main leaves are down towards the earth, but the shoots where the flowers reside all come straight out. It's not like a big bush. It's just this long shoot that are all like real swirly in the wind, and they do not need a lot of water. And they're usually on hillsides where they're taking in a lot of sun. So you can see that quality of air in them, but you can also see that planet of the sun in them. So it's just, it's beautiful to be able to see different planetary qualities and different elemental qualities in all the different plants and being able to like see how those archetypal qualities, because of like what's called like astral herbalism, but it's really like medical astrology. And so, like, when you're looking at medical astrology and you're looking at the different bodies and where the zodiac uh, archetype lies in the tissues, in the organs, in the whole system, you're like, that's interesting because that actually correlates with that plant that can do that one thing in the body. I wonder if it can help counterbalance an excess or a deficiency in some sort of an energetic that's happening with people. So
Mhm.
that's where the plants have really helped me being able to like look at them during my plant sits, watch them when I'm growing them and seeing how they're behaving throughout the different seasons, and then once I harvest them, then working with them, using them myself, seeing how they interact with other plants and being able to like combine them because I like to do a lot of different blends. And then once I do that, then I'm able to like see how it's sitting in my body and my constitution. Okay, so I know my constitution and what's in excess, and I know what I need. But what about everybody else? And so then it's kind of like, all right, well, now let me know myself so then I can know other people. And so that's really been the biggest transition for me when it comes to making my own natural products. It's helped me connect back with Mother
Mhm.
Nature on a level that is exponential. I've learned so much from her. And then also like being able to work with other people because I know myself more. You know what I mean?
Yeah. First, it's much easier for the body to absorb it versus if you were to get it in a supplement form. But you were talking about the roots, and I love to visualize as our body roots. So our gut, it needs to have healthy roots to be able to absorb. So we need that part to be healthy. So think of healthy soil. You want just a good nurturing soil to have. So that's what we want in our gut, good nurturing foods. When that is healthy, now it can absorb. It goes up the trunk, it goes up through the body and throughout us, and then it sprouts those healthy leaves. But if the roots itself in our gut are not healthy, it doesn't matter how much crap you're throwing in there. Because if think about a plant, if the roots are rotted, if the roots are not healthy, it's not absorbing anything you're throwing at it. First, you have to eliminate all the junk around it. You want to give it good, healthy soil. And when it has that, now it can absorb all the nutrients and bring it throughout the body. Our body works the same way. You want to eliminate all the toxins, all the junk, all of that. Get that good, healthy, whole foods in your body. Let that part heal, and then it can absorb all the nutrients throughout the body.
I like that very much. I think about it a little bit like actually I flip it. I think of like us as an upside down flower.
Heard that one before.
So let me try and kind of expound on that. So our brain are the roots. You know, our brain is the structure of the like the mycelial, right? And every little neuron has what's called dendritic spines on the receiving end, like the sensory
Hmm.
receiving end of the, and those are like the little root hairs that are all over that are taking in more absorption. Where does the soil begin? Where does the seed get planted? It's there. It's in
Mm.
the roots. And so when that happens, it's the internal landscape that's necessary to tend to first and foremost. The internal landscape, what kind of seeds are we allowing to grow and sprout? And how are
Mm.
we taking away that which is not helping the new seeds to come into their life cycle?
Yes.
And so that's like, but so ultimately it's our story, it's the narrative,
Yes.
right? But it's like, where does the story come from? It comes from the state. It comes from this is Tony Robbins stuff here.
Hmm.
The state, the story, the strategy, right?
Yes.
It's like, okay, well, we have this state of mind, right? And that state of mind is going to change the way that our narrative works. And that's all constructed in the landscape of our own minds. That's the soil that we're tending to,
Hmm.
right? And that's what's going to help us absorb the nutrition that this body we're like the limbs. This is like where we're taking in all of this nutrients, right? We're like a donut hole. And so whatever goes in here, we're like taking it all in. And then where are our reproductive organs? Right here. This is the flower. So the
Hmm.
flower is the yoni, and
Yeah.
the pollen is the phallic member. So so I think of this as an upside down flower.
As above, so below. No, actually, that makes so much sense because that's why I specialize in the gut and the mind. Because the truth is, it doesn't matter how much good stuff you put in your body. If your mindset is wrong, if your story is I'm a victim, I suck at life and all that, it's still gonna it's this no all the good food that you put in your body, doesn't matter how much you go to the gym, it's not gonna work, but it goes the other way around too.
Yeah.
You could be so spiritual and meditate all the time and doing all that, and then you put it consuming crap.
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Yeah.
Both ways. It's not one or the other. It's not. Yeah.
I think that that is like really important to talk about. And I'm so glad that we got that in there because that is like, I think, paramount to understanding gut brain health right there.
It doesn't make sense logically, but when I healed my gut, I was able to hear that guidance, connect with that intuition, and life has become magical. I can't even explain the things that happen, the people that I meet. It's something that the human persona cannot do on their own. But when I healed my gut, when I started to clear that channel, made food communion again, it's like I'm just truly the things that happen. It's divinely guided, and there's no other way you can say it. And that happens with when you start to get the gut healthy and the gut mind. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we are mind, body, and spirit. So when we get the mind and the body connected, the spirit, it's like clear
Easy,
channel.
free to flow, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when we are able to sleep better because our gut
Hmm.
health is better, then we're able to restore the body better for longer periods of time when our delta sleep is longer, right?
Hmm.
But then also, speaking of the pineal gland, it's our imagination station. It's where we're able to envision our future self in the present now. If that's decalcified because of environmental factors, then we're not able to tap into places where
Hmm.
we can become more powerful and we receive the intuitive downloads through our mind's eye um I mean there's just so much to the pineal gland that is important for us to understand, especially because they say that the scientists have proven that the pineal gland, which is a small endocrine gland that has to do with melatonin has to do with helping us sustain our sleep at night.
Hmm.
So if it's blocked, then we're having a real hard time sleeping. It can get blocked because of too much artificial lighting all the time, right? And our body is just tricked into thinking that it's still daytime. And so then it's not gonna release GABA and melatonin. But more than that, though, the pineal gland is big when we're small, when we're younger, and it atrophies, meaning it actually reduces in its size as we're older. And I think that that's really important to understand. Like, we don't have the same imagination when we're younger, and like all of those different things. It would be really curious to see the size of a pineal gland in someone who still exercises their imagination like regularly as an adult to see if it's still atrophied, because I think that that's a real important region of our brain that is needed to be cleared and cleansed for us to be able to hone into these places. So you were talking about you're not sure exactly where it might be. My theory is that that is one of the regions.
That makes sense. That
Yeah.
absolutely makes sense.
And
Yeah.
so a part of that nourishment comes with mindfulness. And it's like, because they say in neuroscience, I study neuroscience, I'm a cognitive and behavioral neuroscientist. And, they say what nerves fire together, wire together. And
Hmm.
that's very, very true. Um, but more than that, it's like, nourishment comes in all different types of forms. There's a doctrine of specific nerve energies that says that the nervous system doesn't know what is coming in as a stimulus that is activating that pathway. It just knows that it's stimulated. And so once that pathway gets active, there's no turning back. It's an all or none type of a mechanism with action potentials. And so, your stress response pathway can get activated chronically. That's not going to nourish the body. And instead, it's going to start to deplete it, not only energetically, but it's literally going to atrophy your whole system. And your issues will continue in the tissues. And so
Yes.
I would like to just end with, emphasizing how important it is, how nourishment itself, and that starts in our internal landscape, helps us build this sense of self-trust that is the most important form of being able to come back to a place of vibrating at our highest frequency. It's not like we can't ever get back there. It's absolutely accessible. We have the power within us to transmute that which we felt that was happening to us to which is happening for us, which is
Yeah.
happening through us, and which is happening as us.
Well, I just wanted to mention, I happen to be doing a 2-day free workshop, March 28th and 29th, called Rise and Thrive, where I will be covering this. And it's a free workshop that I'm going to be doing for 2 days, where I will be helping people remember and put the right foods in the nervous system, all of it. Go just rise and thrive in life. So yeah, and I'll give you the link for that. But I think that
Oh, wonderful.
I'm doing this year. I want to do more of the giving back and helping people learn how they can do it. So that's why I'm just going to do this for 2 days.
I
Yeah.
love that so much. Thank
Yeah.
you. So we will be able to find Maria's information in the description of this podcast. Do you have a website by any chance?
Yes, it's karma free living with a G because I'm from New York. The G doesn't always come out. So it's karma free living that life. And all my social media is karma free living.
Oh, right. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Thank you so much for
You're
this. This
welcome.
has
This was
been
amazing.
Thank you for sharing so much wisdom. And your presence has just been absolutely illuminating.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate that. And I think that in this time, we're always saying we're living in interesting times, but ultimately, this is the time where we have been able to come into this space of the cycle and shine our light, to be the way showers, to remind you who and what you truly are. And so I really hope that this message, this transmission that came through Maria and I am, reached you in the place exactly where it needed to. And hopefully you're able to walk a little bit lighter and you're able to walk through your days with a little more confidence and
Mm.
maybe even a little bit more mindfulness of where you step and how you contribute to her. So, with that said, I bless this and know it was good and know it was absolutely divine. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you.